If you scream one more time, I swear I will beat that baby out of you. The words tore through the midnight silence of the small compound in Onitsha like a knife. Neighbors who had been stirring in their sleep froze. They knew that voice. They knew that rage. And they knew, like every other night for the past 6 months, that Yatund was suffering again. Welcome to Stories by Tino. Thank you so much for being here and for your incredible support. Before we dive into tonight's story, please drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from: USA, Jamaica, Nigeria, UK? We love hearing from you. Now, let's begin. Yatund knelt on the cold concrete floor, her swollen belly pressing painfully against her thighs. Her knees burned from the raw rice scattered beneath them, tiny, sharp grains that bit into her skin like 1,000 needles. Tears streamed down her face, but she made no sound. She had learned months ago that crying only made it worse. Her husband, Segan, stood over her with his arms folded across his chest, his face twisted with contempt. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with a deep voice that commanded respect in the community. People called him Oga Segan, a successful spare parts dealer, a deacon in the church, a man of influence. But here, in the privacy of their one-bedroom flat, he was something else entirely. You think you're smart, eh? Segan spat, circling her like a predator. You think I don't know what you're planning? You want to trap me with this pregnancy so you can take my money and run, ABI? Segan, please, Yatund whispered, her voice hoarse. I'm not planning anything. I just want to rest. The baby. Shut up, he roared, and she flinched. Don't mention that baby to me. How do I even know it's mine? How do I know you didn't open your legs for someone else? The accusation was absurd, monstrous, and completely unfounded. Yatund had been faithful from the day they met 5 years ago. She had left her family in Enugu to marry him, believing his promises of love and security. But those promises had dissolved the moment she became pregnant. At first, it had been small things: snide comments about her weight, complaints about her cooking, late-night interrogations about where she had been during the day. Then came the slaps. The shoves. The nights when he would wake her up at 2 a.m., accusing her of infidelity, forcing her to kneel and confess to sins she had never committed. Tonight was worse than usual. Stand up, Segan commanded suddenly. Yatund struggled to her feet, her legs trembling. The rice grains clung to her knees, and when she brushed them off, tiny red dots of blood appeared on her skin. Her hands instinctively moved to her stomach, cradling the life inside her. Walk, he said coldly. She stared at him in confusion. Walk where? Around the room. 10 times. And don't stop until I tell you to. Segan, I can't. You can, and you will, he shouted, slamming his hand against the wall so hard that a framed photo of their wedding fell and shattered on the floor. You want to eat my food, sleep in my house, carry my name? Then you will do what I say. Yatund began to walk. Her feet ached. Her back throbbed. The baby kicked restlessly inside her, as if protesting the torture. Round and round the small room she went, past the sagging sofa, past the tiny kitchenette with its single burner, past the closed door that led to the only bedroom, a room she was no longer allowed to sleep in. Segan watched her with his arms crossed, his jaw tight. Faster, he barked. She quickened her pace, tears blurring her vision. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. The world tilted slightly, and she reached out to steady herself against the wall. Did I say you could stop? Segan growled. I'm dizzy, she whispered. Please, I need water. You need discipline, he shot back. You need to learn that I am the man of this house, and what I say is final. Yatund kept walking, but her legs felt like they were made of lead. The room spun. Her vision darkened at the edges. She heard Segan's voice from far away, as if he were speaking through water. And then, nothing. When she woke up, she was lying on the cold floor, alone. The sun had not yet risen, but faint gray light seeped through the torn curtains. Her body ached everywhere, her knees, her back, her head. She touched her stomach gently, and relief flooded through her when she felt the baby move. Thank God. Thank God. She lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the compound waking up around her. A rooster crowed. A woman shouted at her children to get ready for school. A motorcycle engine sputtered to life. Normal life. Everyone else was living normal lives. But not her. Yatun turned her head and saw Segan asleep on the bed in the next room, the door slightly ajar. He was snoring softly, one arm flung over his face. He looked peaceful. Innocent, even. How could someone so cruel look so harmless in sleep? She thought of the woman she used to be, the bright, hopeful girl who had graduated from secondary school with dreams of becoming a teacher. The girl who had fallen in love with Segan's charm, his confidence, his promises of a better life. She thought of her mother's warnings before the wedding, make sure he treats you well, my daughter. A man who loves you will never raise his hand to you. She had ignored those warnings. And now, she was paying the price. But as she lay there on the cold floor, something inside her shifted. It was small at first, a whisper, a flicker of defiance. She placed both hands on her belly and spoke silently to the child within. I will not let him break us. I will not let him destroy you before you even have a chance to live. She thought of her neighbor, Mom Ngozi, who had once pulled her aside and said, if you ever need help, come to me. Don't wait until it's too late. She thought of her cousin in Ibadan who had escaped a similar marriage and rebuilt her life. She thought of the women she saw at the market, strong, resilient women who carried their burdens with dignity and refused to be defeated. And she made a decision. That evening, Segan came home late, smelling of beer and cigarettes. He did not speak to her, did not acknowledge her presence as she served him rice and stew. He ate in silence, then pushed the plate away and retreated to the bedroom, locking the door behind him. Yatun waited until she heard his snores. Then, moving as quietly as she could, she gathered a few items, a change of clothes, her wedding certificate, her national ID card, and the little money she had managed to save from the small provisions she sold at the market. She wrapped everything in a plastic bag and hid it under the sofa. Her hands trembled as she worked. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure Segan would wake up and catch her. But he didn't. She returned to her spot on the floor and lay down, staring at the ceiling. She did not sleep. She could not sleep. Her mind raced with fear and possibility. What if he finds me? What if I can't survive on my own? What if something happens to the baby? But then, a stronger voice rose above the fear. What if I stay, and he kills me? As the first light of dawn crept through the window, Yatun sat up slowly. She placed one hand on her stomach and whispered the words that would change everything. We are leaving, tonight. What would you do if you were in Yatun's position? Would you stay and hope for change, or would you risk everything to escape? Drop a like if you've ever felt trapped, and comment below where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Will Yatun make it out alive? The compound was still wrapped in the hushed darkness of early morning when Yatun slipped out of the flat. It was 4:47 a.m. She had checked the small clock on the wall 3 times to be sure. Segan's snores still rumbled from the bedroom, steady and deep. She had maybe an hour before he woke up for his morning prayers, the same prayers where he would kneel and ask God to bless his business while his pregnant wife slept on a cold floor with bruised knees. Yatun's hands shook as she eased the front door open, inch by inch, praying the rusty hinges wouldn't betray her. The plastic bag with her belongings felt impossibly heavy in her grip, though it contained almost nothing: 2 wrappers, 1 blouse, her documents, and 3,000 naira she had hidden in the lining of her old purse. 3,000 naira. That was all she had to start a new life. She stepped out into the compound, barefoot because her only pair of slippers had broken weeks ago and Segan had refused to buy her new ones. You're not going anywhere that requires shoes, he had said with a cruel smile. The night air was cool against her skin, and she pulled her wrapper tighter around her swollen belly. The baby kicked, as if sensing the urgency, and she placed a reassuring hand over the movement. "Shoo, my love," she whispered. "We're going to be okay. We have to be." She moved quickly across the compound, keeping close to the walls, avoiding the patches of moonlight that might expose her. The other tenants' windows were dark and silent. Mom Ngozie's flat was just ahead, the woman who had once offered help, but Yatund couldn't risk knocking. If Segan woke up and came looking, anyone who had helped her would face his wrath. No. She had to disappear completely. She reached the compound gate and her heart sank. The metal gate was padlocked from the inside, and the landlord kept the key. There was no way out except. Yatund looked at the fence. It was about 5 feet high, made of concrete blocks with broken glass cemented along the top to keep out thieves. In her condition, climbing it seemed impossible. But staying was certain death. She dragged an empty paint bucket from beside the gate and positioned it against the fence. Her whole body protested as she stepped up onto it, her pregnant belly throwing off her balance. She reached for the top of the fence, carefully avoiding the jagged glass, and pulled herself up with strength she didn't know she possessed. Pain shot through her arms. Her feet scrambled for purchase. For one terrifying moment, she thought she would fall backward, but then she managed to swing one leg over, then the other, and she was on the other side, landing hard on the dusty street. She had made it out. Yatund stood there for a moment, breathing hard, clutching her stomach. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We're free." She didn't look back. She couldn't. If she looked back at that compound, at that flat where she had suffered for so long, she might lose her courage. Instead, she started walking. The motor park was already stirring with activity when Yatund arrived 40 minutes later. Her feet were cut and bleeding from the rough road, and her wrapper was covered in dust. Bus conductors shouted destinations into the dawn air: Onitsha, Onitsha, Owerri, Enugu. While traders set up their stalls selling bread, akara, and hot tea. Yatund approached a conductor standing beside a bus bound for Ibadan. "How much?" she asked quietly. The young man looked her up and down, taking in her pregnant belly, her bare feet, her haunted eyes. 3,000 naira, sister." Her heart dropped. That was everything she had. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "That's all the money I have. I need to get to Ibadan. It's an emergency." The conductor studied her face for a long moment, and something in her desperation must have touched him. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Enter. Sit at the back. Don't tell anyone I gave you free transport." "Thank you," Yatund whispered, clutching his hand. "God bless you." She climbed onto the bus and made her way to the last row, sinking into the worn seat with relief. Other passengers began boarding, traders with large bags, students heading back to school, a woman with a crying baby. Nobody paid attention to the pregnant woman in the corner who looked like she was running from something. As the bus engine roared to life and they pulled out of the motor park, Yatund finally allowed herself to breathe. She was leaving Onitsha. She was leaving Segan. She was leaving the nightmare behind. But even as relief washed over her, guilt gnawed at her insides. What kind of wife runs away from her husband? What would people say? What would her family think? Then she remembered last night, the raw rice, the endless walking, the way Segan had watched her collapse with cold indifference, and the guilt dissolved into something harder, something more like resolve. She wasn't a bad wife. She was a woman trying to survive. Back in Onitsha, Segan woke up at 6:15 a.m. to an empty flat. At first, he assumed Yatund had gone to the market early, though he had forbidden her from leaving the house without his permission. Anger flared in his chest. How dare she disobey him? He went through his morning routine, washing his face, saying his prayers, checking his phone for messages from customers. It wasn't until he looked for his breakfast and found the kitchen completely cold, with no sign that anyone had cooked, that suspicion crept in. "Yetund," he called out. Silence. He checked the tiny bathroom. Empty. He checked under the table where she sometimes slept when he locked her out of the bedroom. Nothing. Then he saw it. The space under the sofa where she used to keep her small bag was empty. Segan's chest tightened. He tore through the flat, opening cupboards, checking behind furniture, searching for any sign of where she might have gone. Her few clothes were gone. Her ID card was gone. The small tin where she kept her market money, gone. She had left him. The realization hit him like a physical blow, and rage exploded through his body. He grabbed the small stool near the door and hurled it across the room, shattering the window. He overturned the table. He kicked the wall until his foot ached. "Yetund," he roared, as if shouting her name would make her magically reappear. Neighbors began gathering outside his door, drawn by the noise. "Olga Segan, what'n happen?" someone called out. "My wife." Segan shouted, storming out of the flat. His eyes were wild, his shirt disheveled. "My wife has run away. She's pregnant, she's not well in the head, she's confused. We need to find her before she hurts herself." Mama Ngozi stood in her doorway, arms folded across her chest. "Olga Segan, that girl was fine when I saw her yesterday. What did you do to her?" "What did I do?" Segan spun to face her, his voice dripping with false outrage. "I gave her everything. I married her, gave her a roof over her head, and this is how she repays me? By running away like a thief in the night?" "Maybe she had her reasons," Mama Ngozi said quietly, and there was steel in her voice. "You." Segan pointed at her accusingly. "Did you help her? Did you tell her to leave?" "I didn't help her do anything," Mama Ngozi replied calmly. "But if she left you, Olga Segan, maybe you should ask yourself why." The other neighbors murmured among themselves, and Segan realized he was losing control of the narrative. He forced himself to calm down, to adopt the mask of the concerned husband. "Please," he said, his voice now trembling with false emotion. "Please, if anyone sees her, tell her to come home. She's carrying my child. I'm worried about her. I just want her safe." But as he spoke those words, his hands were clenched into fists at his sides, and his jaw was tight with barely contained fury. He would find her. And when he did, she would pay for this humiliation. The bus ride to Ibadan took 6 hours, with stops along the way for passengers to use the toilet and buy food from roadside vendors. Yetund spent most of the journey staring out the window, watching the landscape change from the busy streets of Onitsha to smaller towns, then to stretches of farmland and forest. She had a cousin in Ibadan, Funmilayo, who had escaped a similar situation 3 years ago. They hadn't spoken much since then, but Yetund remembered Funmilayo's words at a family gathering: "If you ever need help, find me." No woman should suffer in silence. The problem was, Yetund didn't have Funmilayo's exact address. She only knew the area, Bodija, and she would have to ask around once she got there. When the bus finally pulled into Ibadan's main motor park, Yetund felt overwhelmed by the noise and chaos. This city was bigger than Onitsha, more sprawling, more intimidating. She had no money left, no phone, no way to contact anyone. She stood at the edge of the motor park, clutching her plastic bag, feeling utterly lost. An elderly woman selling oranges nearby noticed her and called out, "Sister, you look lost. You need help?" Yetund approached her gratefully. "Please, Ma. I'm looking for Bodija area. Do you know it?" "Bodija is not far, but it's a big area." "Who are you looking for?" "My cousin. Her name is Funmilayo. She runs a small tailoring shop." The woman thought for a moment, then nodded. "I know a Funmilayo in Bodija. Small woman, always wears her hair in braids." "Yes." Yetund's heart leaped. "Yes, that's her." "Wait here," the woman said. She called over a young boy who was helping her arrange her oranges. "Tund, take this woman to Sister Funmi's shop in Bodija. Make sure she gets there safely. The boy nodded and gestured for Yutun to follow him. As they walked through the busy streets of Ibadan, weaving between motorcycles and pedestrians, Yutun felt the first stirring of hope she had experienced in months. Maybe, just maybe, she would survive this. But just as they turned onto a quieter street, her phone, the old Nokia she had hidden in her wrapper, began to ring. She pulled it out with trembling hands and looked at the screen. Segan. Her blood turned to ice. How had he gotten this number? She had been so careful, had only given it to. The phone rang again. And again. The boy looked at her curiously. Sister, you're not answering? Yutun stared at the phone, her finger hovering over the answer button. Part of her wanted to throw the phone away, to cut off all connection to her old life. But another part of her, the part that had been conditioned to obey, to submit, to answer when called, almost pressed the button. Before she could make a decision, a different number flashed on the screen. Unknown. She answered hesitantly. Hello? A man's voice came through, calm and measured. Is this Yutun? Who is this? My name is Dr. Emmanuel. I work with a women's shelter here in Ibadan. Your neighbor, Mom Ngozi, contacted us. She said you might be in danger and heading this way. Yutun's eyes filled with tears. Mom Ngozi had helped her after all. She told me to tell you, the man continued, that you are not alone. We have a safe place for you and your baby. We can help you. I don't have any money, Yutun whispered. You don't need money. You just need to be safe. Can you tell me where you are? Yutun looked around at the unfamiliar streets, at the young boy waiting patiently beside her, at the setting sun casting long shadows across the road. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Yes, she said, her voice stronger now. Yes, I can tell you where I am. And as she gave Dr. Emmanuel directions, as she prepared to step into the next chapter of her life, her old phone rang again. Segan. This time, she didn't even hesitate. She turned off the phone, removed the SIM card, and dropped it into a nearby gutter. That part of her life was over. Yutun has escaped, but will Segan really let her go that easily? What do you think Dr. Emmanuel's shelter will be like? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Will Yutun finally find peace, or is Segan already planning his next move? Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next, ***. Dr. Emmanuel's car pulled up 30 minutes later, a modest Toyota Corolla that had seen better days but was clean and well maintained. The man who stepped out was nothing like what Yutun had imagined. He was in his late 40s, wearing simple jeans and a polo shirt, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a gentle smile that immediately put her at ease. Yutun, he asked softly. She nodded, suddenly unable to speak. The reality of what she had done, leaving her husband, running away with nothing, trusting a complete stranger, hit her all at once, and her legs began to shake. Dr. Emmanuel seemed to sense her fear. You're safe now, he said quietly. I know you don't know me, and I know you're scared. But I promise you, we're here to help. No judgments, no conditions. Just help. The young boy who had guided her handed her plastic bag to Dr. Emmanuel, then disappeared back into the evening crowd, his job done. Yutun climbed into the car, every muscle in her body tense, half expecting Segan to appear out of nowhere and drag her back. But he didn't. As they drove through Ibadan's bustling streets, Dr. Emmanuel spoke in a calm, measured tone. The shelter is called New Dawn. We help women who are escaping domestic violence, abuse, or dangerous situations. We have medical staff, counselors, legal advisors, and most importantly, we have other women who understand exactly what you're going through. How did Mom Ngozi know about you? Yutun asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't, directly. She called her church, and they called us. It's a network, quiet, but strong. We help a lot of women, Yutun. More than you'd think. You're not alone in this. Tears slipped down Yutun's cheeks. I left my husband, she said, and the words felt like a confession. What kind of woman does that? A brave one, Dr. Emmanuel replied firmly. A woman who chooses life over death. A woman who protects her child. That's what kind of woman does that. New Dawn was located in a quiet residential area of Ibadan, set back from the main road behind a tall fence covered with bougainvillea. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary compound. No signs, no labels, nothing to draw attention. That was intentional, Dr. Emmanuel explained. The women who came here needed invisibility, needed to feel hidden from the men who might be searching for them. Inside, the compound was surprisingly peaceful. There was a main building with several rooms, a small garden where vegetables grew in neat rows, and a covered area where women sat together, talking softly while children played nearby. A woman in her 60s approached as they entered. She was short and round, with gray hair pulled back in a bun and a face that radiated warmth. This is Mama Ruth, Dr. Emmanuel said. She runs the day-to-day operations here. Mama Ruth, this is Yatund. Welcome, my daughter, Mama Ruth said, pulling Yatund into a gentle embrace. You look exhausted. When did you last eat? Yatund tried to remember. Yesterday? The day before? Time had become a blur. I don't remember. Come, Mama Ruth said, taking her hand. First, we feed you. Then we talk. The dining area was simple but clean, several long tables with benches, a small kitchen where something delicious was cooking. Mama Ruth sat Yatund down and returned moments later with a plate piled high with jollof rice, fried plantain, and chicken. Eat slowly, she cautioned. Your stomach needs to adjust. Yatund ate, and with each bite, she felt strength returning to her body. Around her, other women came and went, some pregnant like her, some with babies strapped to their backs, some with older children. They smiled at her, offered quiet greetings, but didn't press her with questions. After she finished eating, Mama Ruth took her to a small room with 2 beds, a wardrobe, and a window overlooking the garden. This is yours for as long as you need it, Mama Ruth said. You'll share with Blessing, she's due in 2 months, like you. She's out right now at a skills training session, but you'll meet her later. Skills training? Yatund asked. Yes. We don't just give women shelter here. We help them rebuild their lives. Computer training, tailoring, hairdressing, small business management, whatever skills they need to become independent. Because leaving is only the first step, Yatund. The real work is making sure you never have to go back. That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in months, with a clean sheet and a pillow that didn't smell of sweat and fear, Yatund cried. She cried for everything she had lost, for the woman she used to be, for the marriage that had promised so much and delivered only pain. But somewhere in those tears was also relief. And hope. The next morning, Yatund woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of children laughing in the garden. For a moment, she forgot where she was, and panic seized her. Had Segan found her? Was she back in that terrible flat? Then she saw Blessing, her roommate, sitting on the other bed, gently rubbing lotion onto her own pregnant belly. Good morning, Blessing said with a warm smile. She was younger than Yatund, maybe 23, with tribal marks on her cheeks and eyes that had seen too much. Mama Ruth said you came in late last night. I didn't want to wake you. Good morning, Yatund replied, sitting up slowly. Your first day at New Dawn is always strange, Blessing continued. You keep thinking it's a dream, or that someone is going to come and drag you back. But after a while, you start to believe that you really are safe. How long have you been here? 4 months. I came when I was 5 months pregnant. My husband, he tried to kill me when I told him I wanted to leave. Stabbed me with a kitchen knife. She lifted her shirt slightly, revealing a long scar across her ribcage. Missed the baby by 2 inches. Yatund gasped. And he's not in prison? His family has money and connections. They made the case disappear. But Dr. Emmanuel and Mama Ruth helped me escape before he could finish what he started. I'm so sorry, Yatund whispered. Don't be sorry. Be strong. That's what we do here, we make each other strong. Over the next few weeks, Yatund began to understand what Mama Ruth had meant. New Dawn wasn't just a shelter, it was a transformation center. Every morning at 9 a.m., there was group therapy led by a counselor named Sister Gloria, a psychologist who specialized in trauma recovery. At first, Yatund was reluctant to speak, ashamed of what she had endured. But as she listened to other women's stories of violence, manipulation, financial abuse, sexual assault, she realized that her pain was valid, that she wasn't weak or crazy or deserving of what Segan had done to her. Your husband conditioned you to believe you were worthless, Sister Gloria explained during one session. He isolated you, broke down your self-esteem, made you dependent on him. That's not love. That's control. And what you did by leaving? That took more strength than staying ever could. After therapy, there were skills training sessions. Yatund enrolled in computer basics, learning how to use Microsoft Word, Excel, and even email. It felt strange at first. She had dropped out of school years ago and had never touched a computer, but the instructor, a patient woman named Ngozi, encouraged her every step of the way. Technology is power, Ngozi said. Every skill you learn is a door that opens. And no one can take that knowledge away from you. In the afternoons, there was business training. A retired banker named Mr. Okafor came twice a week to teach basic financial literacy, how to save money, how to create a budget, how to start a small business, how to access government grants for women entrepreneurs. Yatund soaked it all in like a sponge. For the first time in years, her brain was being fed, stimulated, awakened. But the most profound change happened in the evenings, during the informal gatherings in the garden. The women would sit together, sharing their stories, their dreams, their fears. Some talked about the men they had left. Others talked about the futures they were building. One evening, an older woman named Hadiza, who had been at New Dawn for 6 months, stood up and made an announcement. I got the loan, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The cooperative approved my application. I'm opening my own fabric shop next month. The women erupted in cheers and applause. Several rushed to embrace her. Yatund watched, tears in her eyes, as Hadiza cried tears of joy. This was what freedom looked like. Meanwhile, back in Onitsha, Segan's life was beginning to unravel. At first, he had maintained his facade of the concerned husband. He went to the police station to file a missing persons report, telling them that his pregnant wife had run away and might be mentally unstable. He went to the church and asked the pastor to pray for her safe return. He told neighbors that Yatund had family problems and had gone to clear her head. But Mama Ngozi wasn't buying it. She began talking to other neighbors, asking questions, piecing together the truth. The landlord's wife mentioned that she had heard screaming from Segan's flat several times. A young boy who lived upstairs said he had once seen Yatund kneeling on rice in the middle of the night. Another tenant admitted she had seen bruises on Yatund's arms but had been too afraid to intervene. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. People started avoiding Segan at the market. When he greeted them, their responses were cold. His business began to suffer. Customers who had always bought from him started going to his competitors. When he asked why, they made excuses, but he could see the judgment in their eyes. One Sunday, Pastor Adeyemi called him into his office after service. Brother Segan, the pastor said carefully, there are rumors circulating about your marriage. About how you treated Yatund. Rumors. Segan exploded. That's all they are, lies from jealous neighbors who want to destroy my reputation. Were you violent with your wife? I disciplined her when necessary. The Bible says the man is the head of the household. The Bible also says husbands should love their wives as Christ loved the church, Pastor Adeyemi interrupted firmly. If these accusations are true, Brother Segan, you need to repent and seek forgiveness. Not from me, from God, and from Yatund. She's the one who needs to ask for forgiveness. Segan shouted. She abandoned her husband. She broke her vows. And what about your vows, the pastor asked quietly. To love, honor, and cherish? Did you keep those vows when you were beating her? When you were denying her food and sleep? Sigan stormed out of the church, rage boiling inside him. How dare they judge him? How dare they take her side? He was the victim here. Not her. But as the weeks passed, and as more people turned their backs on him, Sigan began to feel something he had never experienced before: isolation. For the first time in his life, he was the one who felt powerless. And he hated it. At new dawn, Yitun's belly continued to grow. She was now 8 months pregnant, and the medical staff monitored her closely. Dr. Emmanuel had arranged for her to receive prenatal care at a nearby clinic, all expenses covered by the shelter's funding. One afternoon, as she sat in the garden practicing her computer skills on a donated laptop, Mama Ruth approached with a letter in her hand. This came for you, she said. Yitun's heart stopped. From who? From a scholarship program. Dr. Emmanuel submitted your application without telling you. He didn't want you to be disappointed if it didn't work out. With trembling hands, Yitun opened the letter and began to read. Dear Ms. Yitun Okoro. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Phoenix Rising Scholarship for Survivors of Domestic Violence. This full scholarship includes tuition, housing assistance, and living expenses for a 2-year program at *. Yitun couldn't read any further. The words blurred through her tears. What is it? Blessing asked, rushing over. I got a scholarship, Yitun whispered. A full scholarship. To continue my education. The women in the garden erupted in celebration. They surrounded her, hugging her, crying with her, celebrating this miracle. But the letter wasn't finished. At the bottom, there was one more paragraph. The program is based in London, United Kingdom, and includes provisions for dependents. You and your child will be fully supported throughout the duration of your studies. London. She was going to London. Yitun looked down at her belly, at the child who had given her the strength to leave, the courage to survive, and now the opportunity to truly start over. Did you hear that? She whispered to her unborn baby. We're going to have a new life. A real life. And no one will ever hurt us again. Thousands of miles away, in a small office in London, a woman named Mrs. Patricia Williams reviewed Yitun's application file one more time. She had been running the Phoenix Rising program for 15 years, helping hundreds of abuse survivors rebuild their lives. But something about Yitun's story had touched her deeply. She picked up her phone and dialed Dr. Emmanuel's number. Hello, Dr. Emmanuel. This is Patricia Williams from Phoenix Rising. I wanted to let you know that we've approved Yitun's application, and we're very excited to welcome her to London. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. This is going to change her life. I have one more question, Mrs. Williams said. In her application, you mentioned that she has some business ideas, that she wants to eventually help other women in similar situations. Is that still accurate? Very much so. Even here at the shelter, she's been talking about creating support networks, about making sure no woman has to suffer alone the way she did. Good, Mrs. Williams said, and there was a smile in her voice. Because the Phoenix Rising program doesn't just train survivors. We help them become leaders. If Yitun is willing to work hard, if she's willing to learn and grow, I believe she could do something extraordinary. I believe that too, Dr. Emmanuel replied. Then let's make sure she gets that chance. Yitun is about to start a new chapter in London, but what will happen when Sigan finds out she's not just surviving, she's thriving? Drop a comment below with your predictions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss this coming chapter, where we see how life abroad transforms Yitun and what Sigan does when he realizes she's gone forever. Where are you watching from? Let us know, ***. 3 years had passed since Yitun left Onitsha with nothing but a plastic bag and a prayer. Now, she stood in the arrivals hall of Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos, wearing a tailored navy blue suit, her natural hair styled in elegant twists, and confidence radiating from every pore. Beside her walked her daughter, Zainab, a bright-eyed 3-year-old with curious eyes and her mother's determined spirit. "Mummy, is this Nigeria?" Zainab asked in her British accent, holding tightly to her mother's hand. "Yes, my love," Yatund replied, squeezing her daughter's hand. "This is where Mummy was born. Where your story began." But Yatund wasn't here for nostalgia. She was here for work. The Phoenix Rising Scholarship had transformed her completely. In London, she had completed her degree in social work and business administration with distinction. She had worked with various women's organizations, learning from the best, understanding how to build systems that truly help survivors of abuse. But more than that, she had healed. Therapy had helped her understand that what Sigan did to her was never her fault. She had learned to set boundaries, to recognize manipulation, to value herself not as someone's wife, but as a complete person in her own right. And then, 6 months ago, she had founded her own organization, Unbreakable Women International. The mission was simple but powerful: to provide comprehensive support to pregnant women and mothers escaping domestic violence across Africa. Emergency shelters, legal support, skills training, trauma counseling, and business grants. Everything Yatund had received at New Dawn, she was now scaling across multiple countries. Her first major partnership was with the Nigerian government. They had invited her organization to establish 3 new shelters across the country, starting in Lagos, Abuja, and, ironically, Onitsha. As her taxi drove through Lagos traffic toward her hotel in Victoria Island, Yatund stared out at the bustling city she had once fled. She was no longer that broken, barefoot woman running in the dark. She was Dr. Yatund Okoro now, founder and CEO, a woman with resources, connections, and most importantly, a voice that people listened to. Meanwhile, in Onitsha, Sigan's life had continued its slow collapse. His spare parts business had failed 2 years ago after several bad investments, and his increasingly volatile temper drove away customers. He now worked odd jobs at the motor park, loading goods for traders, barely making enough to eat. His family had distanced themselves from him after the truth about how he treated Yatund became public. His younger brother had confronted him at their father's funeral. "You drove away a good woman because you wanted to feel powerful. Now look at you." He had tried to remarry twice, but both women left within months. Word traveled fast in small communities, and no one wanted to become the next Yatund. On this particular evening, Sigan sat in a dingy beer parlor, nursing his 3rd bottle of Gulder, when he overheard 2 men at the next table talking. "You see that woman on NTA News last night? The one starting those shelters for abused women?" "Ah, yes. Dr. Yatund Okoro. Very brilliant woman. She's coming to open one here in Onitsha next month." Sigan's bottle froze halfway to his lips. Yatund. His Yatund. "I hear she was once in a terrible marriage herself," the first man continued. "Husband nearly killed her when she was pregnant. But she escaped and built herself up in London. Now she's a millionaire, helping other women. That's why they call the program Unbreakable. Because she proved that no man can truly break a woman who decides to rise." Sigan's hand trembled. He pulled out his old phone and searched online, Dr. Yatund Okoro Unbreakable Women. And there she was. Her face filled his screen, professional photos, interviews, articles in major newspapers. She was standing with government officials, shaking hands with the vice president, cutting ribbons at shelter openings. This couldn't be his wife. His Yatund had been weak, submissive, dependent. This woman was powerful, educated, untouchable. But it was her. The same eyes, the same face, just stronger now. Unreachable. Sigan felt something crack inside his chest, not quite regret, not quite grief, but a hollow recognition that he had destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him. He had tried to break her, and instead, she had flown. The town hall meeting was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the Onitsha Main Market Town Hall, and the place was packed. Women filled every seat: traders, teachers, market sellers, housewives. Some brought their children. Some came with visible bruises they tried to hide. When Yatund walked onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. She stood at the podium, took a deep breath, and began. Good afternoon, my sisters. My name is Dr. Yatund Okoro, and I am a survivor. The room went silent. 3 years ago, I ran away from this city barefoot and pregnant, with nothing but 3,000 naira and bruises all over my body. The man I called my husband tortured me every night. He made me kneel on raw rice. He denied me food, sleep, dignity. He told me I was worthless, that no one would ever want me, that I deserved everything he did to me. Women in the audience began nodding. Some were crying. I believed him, Yatund continued, her voice strong. Until the day I realized that staying would mean death, for me and for my unborn child. So I left. And today, I stand before you not to tell you how great I am, but to tell you that if I could survive, so can you. She spoke for 20 minutes about Unbreakable Women International, about the new shelter opening in Onitsha, about free legal services and business training. Then she opened the floor for questions. Women stood up one after another, sharing their stories. A teacher whose husband beat her in front of their children. A trader whose husband took all her money and spent it on other women. A young mother whose in-laws supported her husband's abuse. And then, from the back of the room, a commotion. Segan pushed through the crowd, his clothes dirty, his face desperate. Yatund, he shouted. Yatund, please. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Security moved to stop him, but Yatund held up her hand. Let him speak, she said calmly. Segan stumbled forward, falling to his knees in front of the stage. The entire room watched in stunned silence. I was a fool, he cried. I destroyed our marriage. I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, I've lost everything. I have nothing. Yatund looked down at him, and for a moment, she saw the man she had once loved. But that feeling passed quickly, replaced by something steadier, pity. You're right, she said quietly. You don't deserve my forgiveness. But I'm giving it to you anyway, not because you've earned it, but because I refuse to carry hatred in my heart. Forgiveness is for me, not for you. She paused, then continued, her voice firm. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. What you did was evil, and you will live with those consequences. I pray you become a better man, but I am not responsible for your redemption. That's between you and God. She gestured to security. Please escort him out. As Segan was led away, Yatund turned back to the women in the audience. This is what freedom looks like, she said. Not revenge. Not hatred. Just the power to say, you no longer control my story. The room erupted in applause, and Yatund smiled, tears streaming down her face. She had finally let go. Segan has been humiliated publicly, but is this the end? What revenge does Yatund have planned that will truly change everything? Don't miss next chapter. Like, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from, ***. The news of the town hall confrontation spread through Onitsha like wildfire. By evening, everyone was talking about it, the woman who had escaped abuse and returned as a powerful CEO, and the husband who had begged for forgiveness on his knees only to be rejected. Social media exploded with the story. Someone had recorded Segan's public plea and Yatund's response, and the video went viral. #UnbreakableYatund began trending across Nigerian Twitter. Women shared their own stories of survival. Men debated whether Segan deserved a second chance. But Yatund wasn't paying attention to the noise. She had work to do. The next morning, she met with the Onitsha local government chairman, his deputy, and several community leaders at the government house. On the table were blueprints, budget proposals, and partnership agreements for the new Unbreakable Women's Shelter. Dr. Okoro, the chairman said, after yesterday's powerful presentation, we want to fast-track this project. The community needs this facility. When can we break ground? Within 2 weeks, Yatund replied confidently. I've already secured the funding, and my construction team is ready. But I need one specific location. She pulled out a map and pointed to a plot of land. This property. It's currently abandoned, but I've researched the ownership. It belongs to the local government as collateral for an unpaid debt. The chairman studied the map, then looked up in surprise. Dr. Okoro, this is directly across from the compound where I was tortured, Yutund finished calmly. Yes. I know exactly where it is. The room fell silent. With all due respect, the deputy chairman said carefully, won't that location bring back painful memories? There are other suitable properties in better areas. Yutund shook her head. That's precisely why it must be there. Every day, women in that neighborhood suffer in silence, just like I did. They hear screams through thin walls and do nothing because they think it's not their business. I want to put a shelter right in front of them, a constant reminder that abuse is everyone's business, and that escape is possible. She paused, her voice growing stronger. And yes, it's across from where Segan lives. Every morning when he wakes up, I want him to see women walking into that building to find safety. I want him to see what he could have been part of if he had chosen love instead of violence. That's not revenge, that's education. The chairman nodded slowly. You have our full support, Dr. Okoro. The land is yours. 2 days later, Yutund walked through the compound where she had once suffered. Nothing had changed, the same rusty gate, the same cracked walls, the same tiny flats where families lived on top of each other. Mama Ngozi was sweeping her doorstep when she looked up and saw Yutund approaching. The old woman's eyes widened, then filled with tears. My daughter, she whispered, dropping her broom and rushing forward. My precious daughter, you came back. They embraced tightly, and for a moment, Yutund was that frightened pregnant woman again, receiving kindness from the only neighbor who had dared to care. Thank you, Yutund said. Thank you for calling New Dawn. You saved my life. No, child. You saved your own life. I just made a phone call. Other neighbors began emerging from their flats, drawn by the commotion. Some recognized Yutund immediately from the viral video. Others remembered her as the quiet, broken woman who used to live in flat 4. Is it true? A young woman asked shyly. Are you really building a shelter here? Yes, Yutund confirmed. Right across the street. It opens in 3 months. Murmurs rippled through the small crowd. Some women smiled with hope. Some men looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight, avoiding eye contact. Then Yutund saw him. Segan stood in the doorway of flat 4, the same flat where he had tortured her. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. His shirt was stained, his face unshaven, his eyes hollow. Their gazes met across the compound, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Segan stepped forward. Yutund, can we talk? Privately? No, she said simply. We have nothing to discuss. Please. Just 5 minutes. I need to explain. Explain what? Yutund interrupted, her voice calm but firm. That you were stressed? That you didn't mean it? That you've changed? I've heard every excuse, Segan. I counsel women every day who've heard the same promises you're about to make. I'm dying, Segan blurted out. The compound went silent. The doctors say I have liver disease. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. I'm not asking you to take me back. I need to know you don't hate me. That you don't wish me dead. Yutund studied his face, looking for manipulation, for the trap she knew he was capable of setting. But all she saw was a broken man facing his mortality. I don't hate you, she said quietly. And I don't wish you dead. But I also don't owe you my time, my energy, or my forgiveness beyond what I already gave you publicly. You made your choices, Segan. Now you live with them, or die with them. That's not cruelty. That's consequence. She turned to leave, then paused. If you want redemption, stop trying to get it from me. Go find the other women you've hurt over the years and make amends to them. Use whatever time you have left to become the man you should have been all along. That's the only way your life will mean something." Without waiting for his response, she walked away. 3 weeks later, construction began on the Unbreakable Women's Shelter. Yatund was on site every day, supervising, making decisions, ensuring everything met her standards. The building would have 20 rooms, a medical clinic, a computer training center, a legal aid office, a children's play area, and a large meeting hall for support groups and skills training. But the most striking feature was the sign that would hang above the entrance, large, bold letters that could be seen from every corner of the compound. Unbreakable Women International. Every woman deserves safety, dignity, and freedom. Local contractors were hired. Women from the community were given jobs in construction, painting, and landscaping. Mama Ngozi was offered a position as the shelter's community liaison, a paid role that recognized her years of quietly helping abused women. "This is too much," Mama Ngozi protested when Yatund told her. "It's not enough," Yatund replied. "You showed me that one person's courage can change everything. Now I'm asking you to help me multiply that courage across hundreds of women." As the weeks passed, something remarkable happened. The compound began to change. Women who had been silent about their own abuse started speaking up. 2 women left violent marriages and moved temporarily with relatives while seeking help. A young bride who had just gotten married saw the construction and told her new husband, "If you ever raise your hand to me, I know where I'm going." Even some of the men began to change. One evening, Yatund overheard 2 men talking near the construction site. "You know, seeing this building going up every day, it makes you think about how you treat your wife." "Exactly. I don't want my daughters to ever need a place like this because of some man's wickedness." Yatund smiled. This was the real revenge, not destroying Segan, but building something so powerful that men like him became relics of the past. 1 month before the shelter's grand opening, Yatund received an unexpected visitor at her hotel. The receptionist called her room, voice hesitant. "Dr. Okoro, there's a man here asking to see you. He says his name is Segan, and it's urgent." Yatund's first instinct was to refuse. But something made her reconsider. "Send him up." When Segan entered her suite, she barely recognized him. He had lost significant weight, his skin had a yellowish tint, and he moved slowly, like every step caused pain. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, remaining standing even when she gestured to a chair. "I know I don't deserve." "Why are you here, Segan?" she interrupted. He pulled out an envelope and placed it on the table. "These are the deeds to Flat 4 and my late father's land in the village. I want to donate them to your organization. Use them however you need, sell them, build more shelters, whatever helps your work." Yatund stared at the envelope, stunned. "I also wrote letters," Segan continued, his voice shaking. "To 5 women I hurt before you. Wives, girlfriends. I tracked them down and apologized. 3 of them accepted my apology. 2 told me to never contact them again. Both responses were fair." He pulled out another paper. "And this is a sworn affidavit. Everything I did to you, the torture, the abuse, the lies I told afterward, all documented, signed, and witnessed by a lawyer. If it helps even one woman prove her case in court, then it's worth it." Yatund picked up the affidavit and read it. It was thorough, brutally honest, legally binding. "Why now?" she asked. "Because dying has a way of making you face the truth. I spent my whole life trying to feel powerful by making others weak. Now I'm the weak one, and I finally understand what I put you through." He paused. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I already lost that right. I just want to do something good before I die." Yatund stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Onitsha skyline. "I'll accept the donation," she finally said. "And I'll use the affidavit to help other women. But understand this, Segan, this doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't make us friends or family. It just means you finally did one decent thing." "I know," he said quietly. and it's more than I deserve." After he left, Yatun sat alone in her suite, holding the papers he'd given her. She thought about revenge, about justice, about healing. She realized that the greatest victory wasn't watching Segan suffer, it was building something so strong that his suffering became irrelevant. The shelter is almost complete, but the grand opening will reveal something even bigger than anyone expected. What is Yatun's ultimate plan? Find out in Chapter 6. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. What do you think Segan's donations will mean for other women? ****. The grand opening of Unbreakable Women International's Onitsha shelter was scheduled for a Saturday morning, and the entire community turned out. Government officials arrived in their convoys, traditional rulers came in their ceremonial attire, religious leaders from churches and mosques stood side by side, and hundreds of women filled every available space. Television cameras from NTA, Channels TV, and even international media outlets lined the perimeter. This wasn't just a shelter opening, it had become a national moment, a symbol of women's resilience and transformation. Yatun stood backstage in the new building, looking out at the crowd through a window. Directly across the street, she could see the compound where she had suffered. Flat 4's window was closed, curtains drawn. Segan was inside, she knew he was watching. "Dr. Okoro, we're ready for you," her assistant said. Yatun took a deep breath, smoothed her traditional purple Ankara dress, and walked onto the stage. The crowd erupted in applause that lasted nearly 2 minutes. Women held up signs, "We are unbreakable, thank you Dr. Yatun, every woman deserves safety." When the noise finally died down, Yatun stepped to the microphone. 3 years ago, I ran away from a building across this street, she began, her voice steady and clear. I was pregnant, broken, and convinced I would die in that flat. Today, I stand here as proof that our stories don't end where our abusers think they do. More applause. This shelter represents more than just a safe building. It represents a promise that no woman in this community will ever have to suffer alone again. That abuse will no longer be a private family matter we whisper about. That we will protect, educate, and empower every woman who walks through these doors. She gestured to the building behind her. Inside these walls, we have 20 furnished rooms, a medical clinic staffed by volunteer doctors and nurses, a legal aid office with pro bono lawyers, computer training facilities, skills acquisition workshops, and a children's center. Everything a woman needs to escape, heal, and rebuild. The crowd cheered again, but Yatun raised her hand for silence. But I didn't do this alone. This shelter exists because of the courage of women who came before me, women who are here today. She called several women to the stage, survivors from New Dawn Shelter in Ibadan, women who had rebuilt their lives and now worked as counselors, trainers, and advocates. Each one shared a brief story of survival and transformation. Then Yatun invited women from the Onitsha community to share. One by one, women stood up. A trader named Blessing spoke about enduring 15 years of beatings before finally leaving last month. A teacher named Ifioma described how her husband burned her arm with an iron for serving dinner late. A young woman named Hadiza, barely 20, talked about being married at 16 to a man who raped her nightly and called it marital rights. The crowd listened in stunned silence. Many men shifted uncomfortably. Some women wept openly. Then, something unexpected happened. A commotion erupted at the back of the crowd. People turned to look. Security moved forward, but then stepped aside. Segan was pushing through the crowd. He looked worse than he had a month ago, gaunt, yellow-skinned, moving with obvious pain. But there was determination in his eyes. "Let him through," Yatun said calmly into the microphone. The crowd parted, and Segan made his way to the front. He stood below the stage, looking up at Yatun, breathing heavily from the exertion. "I need to say something," he said, his voice weak but audible through the microphone someone handed him. "Then speak," Yatun replied. Segan turned to face the crowd. Television cameras zoomed in on his face. "My name is Segan Adelik, and I am the man who tortured the woman standing behind me. I beat her while she was pregnant. I made her kneel on rice. I starved her, denied her sleep, and told her she was worthless. I am the reason she ran away barefoot in the middle of the night, fearing for her life and the life of her child. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This was the confession everyone knew but nobody expected to hear publicly. I came here today because I'm dying, Segan continued, tears now streaming down his face. And I realized I can't die without telling the truth. What I did was evil. There's no excuse, no justification. I destroyed a good woman because I was insecure, angry, and drunk on the power society gave me as a husband. He turned back to Yatund. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But these women, he gestured to the crowd, they deserve to know that what happened to them is not their fault. They deserve to know that men like me are the problem, not them. The crowd was completely silent now. If any man here has raised his hand to his wife, Segan said, his voice breaking, stop. Please, stop. Because one day you'll wake up and realize you destroyed the best thing in your life, and it will be too late. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're dying to understand what you've done. He collapsed to his knees, whether from emotion or physical weakness, nobody could tell. Yatund descended from the stage and stood before him. For a long moment, they looked at each other, the woman he tried to break and the man who broke himself instead. Thank you for telling the truth, she said quietly. It doesn't undo the past, but it might save someone's future. She gestured to medical staff. Please take him to the clinic. He needs help. As they helped Segan away, Yatund returned to the microphone. What you just witnessed is rare, she told the crowd. Most abusers never admit what they've done. Most never face consequences. That's why this shelter exists, because we cannot wait for abusers to change. We must give women the power to save themselves. She paused, then smiled. But this is not just about running away. This is about running towards something better. Which brings me to the final announcement. She nodded to her assistant, who brought out a large banner. Unbreakable Women International is launching a new initiative called From Survivor to Success. We're partnering with banks, businesses, and government agencies to provide startup capital, completely free, no interest, no repayment required, to women who have escaped abuse and want to start their own businesses. The crowd erupted in shocked excitement. Any woman who completes our 6-month skills training program will receive up to 500,000 naira to start her business, plus ongoing mentorship and support. Because escaping abuse is just the first step. Building a life where you never have to depend on an abuser again, that's the real freedom. Women in the audience began crying, hugging each other, shouting praises. Yatund continued, and for the men who are listening, we're also starting a program for you. Anger management, healthy relationship training, fatherhood workshops. Because breaking the cycle of violence requires changing both those who suffer and those who inflict suffering. As the ceremony concluded with the ribbon cutting, Yatund looked across the street one final time. The curtains in flat 4 had opened, and she could see the empty room inside. Segan was in the clinic now, receiving care he didn't deserve but that her organization would provide anyway, because healing was for everyone, even monsters who learned to become human again. But as the crowd celebrated and women lined up to register for programs, Yatund felt something shift inside her. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of something much bigger. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mrs. Patricia Williams in London. CNN wants to do a documentary. Are you ready to go international? Yatund smiled and typed back, yes. Let's show the world what unbreakable looks like. Segan has publicly confessed, but Yatund's real revenge is about to be revealed in the final chapter. What do you think her ultimate plan is? Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Don't miss next chapter, it's going to shock everyone, ***. 6 months after the grand opening, the Unbreakable Women's Shelter in Onitsha had become more than just a building, it had become a movement. Every morning, Segan woke up in his small flat and looked out his window at the women streaming into the shelter across the street. Pregnant women seeking safety. Mothers with children finding refuge. Women attending computer classes, learning tailoring, starting businesses, reclaiming their lives. And every morning, the sight reminded him of what he had destroyed. But Yitun's revenge wasn't about making Segan watch from his window. That was just a side effect of something far more powerful. The CNN documentary crew arrived in Onitsha on a humid Tuesday morning. They had been filming Yitun's story for 3 months, her escape, her education in London, her return to Nigeria, and now, the expansion of Unbreakable Women International across 5 African countries. The lead journalist, Amanda Richardson, sat across from Yitun in the shelter's counseling room, cameras rolling. "Dr. Okoro, you've accomplished something extraordinary," Amanda said. "But I have to ask, when you built this shelter directly across from where your abuser lives, was that revenge?" Yitun smiled knowingly. "Everyone asks me that question. They want to believe I came back to destroy him, to make him suffer the way he made me suffer. But that's not what happened here." "Then what is this?" Amanda pressed. "This is resurrection," Yitun replied. "Segan tried to bury me alive. Instead, I planted myself like a seed and grew into something he could never kill. This building isn't about him at all, it's about the hundreds of women who will never have to run barefoot in the dark like I did." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the shelter's courtyard where women sat together, laughing, learning, healing. "You want to know what real revenge looks like?" Yitun continued. "It's not violence. It's not even public humiliation. Real revenge is becoming so powerful that your abuser becomes irrelevant. It's building something so strong that the man who tried to break you spends the rest of his life watching women become unbreakable." Amanda leaned forward. "We understand Segan is terminally ill. Have you spoken to him since the opening ceremony?" "Once," Yitun said. "He asked if he could volunteer at the shelter, help with maintenance, carry supplies, anything to feel useful before he dies. I told him no." "That seems harsh." "Does it?" Yitun turned back to face the camera. "This shelter is a sacred space for women healing from trauma inflicted by men exactly like him. His presence, no matter how repentant, would traumatize them. So I told him that if he truly wants redemption, he should go to other communities, other churches, other men's groups and tell his story. Warn other men not to become like him. That's his redemption work, not here, among his victims, but out there, preventing future victims." "And did he?" "He did. He's spoken at 3 churches, 2 community centers, and a men's conference. He's dying, but he's finally doing something useful with his life." The real turning point came 2 weeks later when Yitun received a call from the governor's office. "Dr. Okoro, the governor wants to meet with you. It's about a statewide initiative." The next day, Yitun sat in the government house in Awka, facing the governor and his cabinet. "Dr. Okoro," the governor began, "your work has not gone unnoticed. We want to make Anambra State the first in Nigeria to have a zero-tolerance policy for domestic violence. We want an unbreakable women's shelter in every local government area. 21 shelters total." Yitun's heart raced. "That's a massive undertaking, Your Excellency." "We know. Which is why we're allocating 2 billion naira from the state budget, and we're asking you to lead the entire program. You'll have full authority over implementation, staffing, and operations." Yitun sat back, momentarily speechless. 2 billion naira. 21 shelters. Thousands of women saved. "There's one more thing," the governor added. "We want to make domestic violence education mandatory in all schools. We want boys growing up understanding that violence against women is criminal. We want girls growing up knowing they don't have to endure abuse. We're calling it the Yitun curriculum." Tears filled Yitun's eyes. "The Yitun curriculum? You survived, you transformed, and now you're saving others. Your name should represent hope, not just for victims, but for an entire generation that will refuse to repeat the mistakes of the past." 3 months later, construction began simultaneously on all 21 shelters across Anambra State. The story made international headlines. The BBC featured Yitun. Al Jazeera did a special report. Forbes Africa named her one of the 100 most influential women changing the continent. But the moment that mattered most to Yatund happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. She was visiting the Onitsha shelter when a young woman named Neka approached her, holding a baby. "Dr. Yatund, I wanted to thank you. 2 months ago, my husband beat me so badly I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I remembered seeing this building from my window. I waited until he left for work, then I ran here with my baby. You saved our lives." Yatund hugged her tightly. "You saved your own life, Neka. I just provided the door. You're the one who walked through it." "I have something to tell you," Neka continued. "I'm starting nursing school next month. The scholarship your program gave me, it's changing everything. My daughter will grow up watching her mother become a nurse, not watching her mother get beaten. That's the future you gave us." As Neka walked away, Yatund understood the full scope of what she had built. This wasn't about Segan anymore. It had never really been about him. This was about Neka, and the hundreds of women like her who would escape, heal, and transform. This was about their daughters who would never accept abuse as normal. This was about their sons who would learn that real strength isn't found in violence. Segan died 4 months later, quietly, in a government hospital. Yatund learned about it from Mama Ngozi. "Will you attend the funeral?" Mama Ngozi asked. "No," Yatund replied. "I said everything I needed to say to him while he was alive. My presence at his funeral serves no purpose. You're not even a little bit happy that he's gone?" Yatund thought about this carefully. "I'm not happy he's dead. I'm just free. Free from anger, free from bitterness, free from the need to prove anything to him. He's gone, but my work continues. That's the difference between his legacy and mine." 1 year after the Onitsha shelter opened, Yatund stood on that same stage for the anniversary celebration. Behind her was a wall covered in photographs, women who had come through the shelter, completed training programs, started businesses, and rebuilt their lives. Beside those photos was a counter that clicked upward every few seconds. 247 women served. 892 children protected. 423 businesses started. 89 abusers prosecuted, ***. When people ask me about revenge, Yatund told the crowd, I show them these numbers. This is my revenge, not destroying one man, but saving thousands of women. Not making him suffer, but making sure others never suffer the way I did." She paused, placing her hand over her heart. "Segan tried to bury me. He didn't know I was a seed. And now, look at this garden." The crowd erupted in applause, but Yatund raised her hand for silence one final time. "I want to speak directly to any woman watching this who is suffering right now. You feel trapped. You think you can't leave. You believe you deserve this. You're afraid no one will help you." She stepped closer to the camera, speaking with fierce intensity. "I was you. I had nothing, no money, no plan, no guarantee of survival. But I left anyway, and it saved my life. And if I could do it, so can you. The door is open. The shelter is ready. We are waiting for you. All you have to do is take the first step." Her voice softened. "Your story doesn't end where he thinks it does. You are not broken. You are not finished. You are unbreakable, you just don't know it yet. Come home to us. Let us show you who you really are." That night, long after the celebration ended, Yatund stood alone in the shelter's garden, watching fireflies dance in the darkness. Her daughter Zainab slept peacefully inside, surrounded by the safety her mother had built. Yatund thought about the woman she used to be, the frightened girl kneeling on rice, convinced she would die in that terrible flat. She thought about the moment she decided to leave, the terrifying climb over that fence, the uncertain journey to Ibadan. And she thought about where she stood now, a doctor, a CEO, a voice for the voiceless, a mother raising her daughter in freedom. This was the revenge Segan never saw coming. Not his destruction, but her resurrection. Not his suffering, but her success. Not his death, but hundreds of women's lives transformed because she refused to stay dead. She looked up at the shelter's sign, illuminated against the night sky. Unbreakable Women International. Every woman deserves safety, dignity, and freedom. And she smiled, because she knew the truth. You cannot break a woman who has already decided to rise. The end. Final message asterisk. Yitun's story is finished, but her mission continues. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. You are not alone. You are not weak. You are unbreakable. Thank you for watching Stories by Tino. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what Yitun's story means to you. Remember, your story doesn't end where your abuser thinks it does. You have the power to write a new chapter. Stay unbreakable. Stay strong. Stay free, asterisk asterisk.